This is the third in what I hope will be 5 videos covering the experiences that spurred me to question my faith and to identify as an atheist. I'm hoping that reviewing my experiences will help to refine my thinking and create a record that I can look at later. I also want to create this video for family and friends who find out that I'm an atheist. In-person conversations have sometimes been frustrating, so I'm going to try using a video recording as a way to communicate the major experiences that led to my atheism. And since no one wants to listen to me talk for an hour, I've split it into more digestible 10 to 15 minute sections. If I've linked you to this series, I hope that this will provide some context for the experiences that led to me identifying as an atheist. Okay, let's get into it. I've gone back and forth about this phase of my experience. It seems in retrospect like a tempest in a teapot, sound and fury signifying nothing. My perspective has shifted so much over time that it's hard for me to reconstruct some of my thought processes and assumptions. However, it was critically important for me at this phase in my journey that I carefully consider each doctrine and tenet that I believed in, and that I weigh each doctrine on its own merits. After I rejected the doctrine of hell, the whole of my Christian belief system gradually fell apart. My religion heavily emphasized doctrinal truth, and when I rejected one doctrine as false, because of the importance of doctrinal truth and authority in my childhood religion, my whole edifice, the whole structure of my belief system was cast into question. Every doctrine, every belief, and every tenet of my faith needed to be examined. Hell may have initially monopolized my attention, but once hell lost its emotional power, I had the mental bandwidth to actually sort through the rest of my belief system. And I tried to rebuild my Christianity into a new and defensible belief, but I didn't get very far. Part of why I didn't get very far has to do with the church that I attended. In a less conservative church or a less conservative congregation, I may have simply drifted into another form of Christianity. That possibility is meaningless, though. It's the road not taken. It's just one of many forks in the road that lead to my current identity. And in practice, my church drove me away. It probably was not intentional, but the church's social coercion and manipulation actually accelerated my departure from Christianity. It forced me to make a choice: return to the Christian fold or embrace apostasy. I chose honest apostasy when I could not, in good conscience, return to the fold. The fact that I was driven to make this choice certainly affects my perception of Christianity more generally, because I think the social coercion I faced as I was leaving my old faith is a reflection of the black and white thinking that was endemic to the congregation I attended. And while I can acknowledge that not all Christians engage in tribalistic in-group, out-group thinking, the doctrine of being chosen, or of being God's chosen, does, in my experience, encourage tribalism in many forms of Christianity. Anyway, after all of this, I didn't initially plan to change much about my relationship with the church or the congregation that I attended. Many of my friends and acquaintances attended the church, and I didn't want to sever those relationships. It also seemed like a good time to rest and get my head on straight. And after all, just because some of the doctrines didn't necessarily line up with my current beliefs, that didn't necessarily mean that I couldn't receive spiritual benefit and fulfillment from attending the church services. But the services gradually turned more and more into a painful chore. the sermons felt small and judgmental and mean, and I started to find more enjoyment and fulfillment from hiking in nature, enjoying a good meal, or learning about the world in class. In contrast, the church services frequently left me just feeling irritable and mentally exhausted. And one week, I left the services early. 2 weeks later, I didn't go to church at all. I just didn't feel up to it. I didn't stop going to church completely because I attended a parochial college, and I needed to keep at least somewhat active in church to continue to attend classes and maintain attendance in good standing. Regardless, my church attendance declined. I cannot say for certain, but I'm pretty sure that after a few months of sporadic attendance, I turned into the congregation's project. And I know, at least on an intellectual level, that it was likely organized to save my soul, to bring back the prodigal son, so to speak. However, the methods used crossed a line. It misused my friendships and social relationships, and in so doing, forced me to give up those relationships. I had many discussions. These interactions blur together, and they're just painful even in retrospect. I heard many times people say, "I'll pray for you," or "It's just a phase," or "Someday you'll find the truth," or "I hope you find your way back, or you'll be cast away by God," or "Let the Spirit guide you." I try not to feel angry. I was a believer, and I'd grown up with the doctrines. I know that many of the members of my old faith really believed that if I honestly searched just a little harder, or listened to my heart a little more, or read the scriptures a little more, that I'd find the truth. And yet it still feels like a personal betrayal. My old church used my friendships, and my believing friends ignored or discounted the basic validity of my experiences and thoughts. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had simply lied through my teeth and mouthed what they expected me to say. But I had spent so much time and energy that lying about my beliefs at this stage seemed like a personal betrayal. And so, when they came to visit and to proselytize, I politely let them in. I listened. I told them what I thought and watched them flounder as they struggled with my questions. And then I said goodbye. And each conversation left me feeling drained. Ironically, the conversations I had simply threw into stark contrast the whole rickety structure of my beliefs and the doctrines that I was examining. The pieces didn't fit anymore. No Holy Spirit testified to me, and the doctrines frequently seemed weird, or factually untrue, or cruel and manipulative. And nothing my bishop or my friends said put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I wanted to try to maintain at least a form of Christianity, but at the end of the day, in a sad and melancholic sort of way, I found nothing worth keeping. Leaving Christianity felt like a loss of innocence, of history, and of tradition. But I stopped attending the church, and I moved away, and I transferred colleges, and almost nothing remained of the religion and the beliefs that I had followed since childhood. I was not an atheist, at least not yet. I still identified as spiritual but not religious, and I maintained a small, comforting personal belief in the divine. It didn't clash with my ethics or my understanding of or my understanding of science. My belief was almost the definition of God of the gaps, but that didn't bother me. After all, the universe is very big, and I honestly wasn't quite ready to just let go of something that I thought provided a small comfort without any sort of cost. To conclude, too many Christians use their faith to embrace tribalism, to enforce doctrinal obedience and force out anyone who is questioning or reconsidering their beliefs. Humans are probably innately tribal, but Christianity exacerbates it. The doctrine of being God's chosen, by its nature, encourages tribalism. It justifies an insider versus outsider mentality and can feed a persecution complex. I consider the aggressive proselytizing that I faced as I was leaving my childhood religion and questioning its doctrines a reflection of my old faith's strong religious tribalism. It placed social pressure on me to return to the fold, and when I didn't agree or accept that social pressure and didn't find the proselytizing or the doctrines convincing, I lost my place in the church. And I lost many friends that I had made at church because I was forced to choose between obedience to the church as an institution or personal integrity. The social coercion I faced as I was trying to rebuild my belief systems still leaves a sour taste in my mouth. After serious thought and reflection, and after hearing arguments and personal testimonies in support of Christianity, I found that I could not believe in most of the foundational doctrines of Christianity. I didn't believe in hell. I didn't believe that humankind is sinful or fallen, because the doctrine grossly oversimplifies the complexities of human nature. I didn't believe that humans needed saving, or that Christ was the Messiah, or that he died to atone for sin, because the doctrines of atonement or of Christ violated basic principles of culpability and responsibility. Basically, I don't like or agree with the idea that blood sacrifice is needed. And yet somehow, perhaps out of sheer obstinance, I nurtured a small little faith in the divine, a residual belief in the higher power. And if pushed by someone, I'd even praise the teachings of Christ in the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes, although I would usually also reject the claim that he was the Son of God. I just couldn't quite give up on spirituality, or a belief in the higher power, or a more general belief in the divine. That came later. If you think I'm wrong to reject Christianity, that's fine. But please extend to me the basic courtesy of accepting my thoughts and experiences as genuine. If you absolutely must try to convert me, please listen to my responses. I didn't leave Christianity easily, and I have heard and rejected many arguments or doctrines that are offered in support of the Christian God or of Christian denominations. Maybe we can have a productive discussion, and you'll prove me wrong about some of Christianity's failings, or at least for your particular denomination of Christianity. Or if you follow some other religion or belief, although I don't generally see that much proselytizing from non-Abrahamic faiths. I hope that this has provided some context for the experiences that shaped my perspective on Christianity and why I honestly considered its doctrines and rejected it. Thanks for your time.